Jen and Cam are two funny ladies who like to talk about murder, mass murder, murder-suicide, serial killers, spree killers, thrill killers, contract killings, honor killings, and a whole lot of other shit too heinous for me to list here. If you're disturbed by this sort of content, you may want to listen to something else. And if you're a child trying to listen to our true crime podcast, well, you better ask your mama.
It's estimated that at any given time, there are up to 90,000 missing persons. And that's just in the United States. Imagine if your loved one went missing. Is there anything that you wouldn't do to try and find them? This is Missing Persons, and I'm your co-host, Mike Morford. In every episode of Missing Persons, you'll hear about a person who disappeared and currently remains missing, as well as the efforts to find them. In some cases, there are clues to follow and leads to check on. In other cases, it's as if the person just vanished off the face of the earth. In each episode, you'll hear from someone that's desperately searching for that missing person. And whether they've been looking for 30 days or 30 years, the struggle to find answers is real. Will you join us and become part of the search for answers in these cases? If so, search for and subscribe to Missing Persons wherever you listen to podcasts. There are dozens of episodes available to binge on right now, and new episodes come out every other Saturday.
Well, hello there, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's kind of nice out, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't been outside yet, but
I haven't been outside either.
Yeah.
I haven't, but I have a rough day of clothes
I'm going to have
cleaning.
my house help me.
Oh, are you?
And by that, I mean my two teenagers that don't do anything.
Yeah, they're not going to help you.
That means me.
We may go buy shoes for homecoming dances soon.
Nice.
So, yeah, it'll be
Okay,
fun.
all right. Yeah.
By the time this is playing, it'll probably already be homecoming, but whatever.
That's fine.
But that's what we're doing.
Heard
I
you
do.
have a case for us. Let's
I do.
hear
Are
it.
you ready?
I am so ready.
All right.
Let's go.
Situated across Lake Washington from Seattle lies the suburb of Bellevue. While technically it is a suburb with cozy bedroom communities, it also has its own thriving downtown and business district. But Seattle, home to 500,000 people, looms large across the lake, with the 14,000-foot Mount Rainier emerging from the rim of evergreen trees far in the distance. With that gorgeous skyline and views comes the Seattle culture and subcultures as well. Known as the Rainy City, gourmet coffee and cream cheese-covered hot dogs was not the only thing unique to Seattle in the 1990s. Its angst-ridden, disaffected teenagers caused a revolution in music just a decade before with bands like the Melvins, Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains.
And Pearl Jam.
Were they from they from Seattle? And Pearl Jam?
Yeah.
Okay, Pearl Jam. Sorry,
Come on,
I know
okay.
you're a huge Eddie
I
Vedder
am.
stan.
I
All right,
am.
we'll include
Thank
Pearl
you.
Jam too. All right.
Okay.
Their anguished lyrics depicted a hopeless and hollow future. And as the grunge movement took hold, flannel shirts, combat boots, and long hair spread across the Puget Sound lowland like the fog of despair. But grunge wasn't the only alternative music or lifestyle. Emo and goth were also prevalent. And while the three groups, well, four if you count punk, all had very distinct sounds and looks, they had one thing in common. They were all anti-establishment and expressed a deep discontent with society as a whole.
Teenagers.
Yep.
Teenagers.
I remember my preppy ass had J. Crew boots that I wore constantly. I love those damn things.
Oh.
That was my grunge. The grunge and J. Crew really, don't
I'm
really
waiting
go
for
together.
grunge to come back. I can't wait. Flannels and baggy clothes. I'm here for it.
It's coming back. You'd be surprised.
I know. I'm ready for it.
In the suburbs, there were many teenagers coming of age, identifying with the music and the look of those subcultures. While most of those were what was known as wannabes or mall goths, who just tried on those identities while navigating their way to adulthood, some did actually participate in some of the edgier and darker behaviors. Parents freaked out as their little Johnny pierced their nose, painted his face white, and wore all black. While self-endangering behaviors or outward violence towards others are not reserved just for those that look a specific way, many parents saw that alteration of their child's appearance as terrifying. From a kid's perspective, it was mostly a way to identify with each other, just another way for the kids who maybe like the same music, movies, literature, and games that they did. They were just fitting in while standing out, right?
Yep.
They were trying to separate
and stand out. Yep.
Right. They were trying to separate themselves from their parents, and most never engage in any kind of violent behavior. So in this counterculture environment in the 1997, there were two teenagers, 17-year-old Alex Barani Jr. and 17-year-old David Anderson. They joined a group of fellow goth friends at Denny's on Saturday nights, and they called themselves the Saturday Night Denny's Club, which we kind of did too at that time.
I was just going to say that.
We just met after
Denny's of the Damned.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's because nothing is good at Denny's at 3 o'clock in the morning. But we digress. Yes. Amidst passing the syrup and getting refills on soft drinks and coffee, the group discussed movies, music, and role-playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know, Dungeons and Dragons is a role-playing game, and a game in which each participant assumes the role of a character interacting within the game's imaginary world. It's a very creative way to spend a few hours with friends, Participants invent characters and creatures and craft a world with a rich and unique history. It's very similar to writing a fantasy novel like Lord of the Rings, right? Except it's like a group activity. And of course, you remember in the Santa Panic, Dungeons and Dragons was like a huge no-no.
Was it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And if you really want to know, if you don't know about it, Dungeons and Dragons is a big theme in Stranger Things.
Oh, that I did know.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So Alex Barani Jr. was from Ohio originally and moved around a lot as a child. He was obsessed with knives and swords, and he wore his hair long so that he could be more like the character from the television show Highlander. His alter ego, or his role-playing character, called a Slicer Thunderclap, was an immortal god. I know.
I'm sorry. I know.
It's not funny for what happened, but
no,
yes.
but I'm just talking about the D&D crowd, which my daughter has just been
my husband's a huge D&D nerd.
So I'm
huge.
I'm picturing them around the table like young kids playing. So it just made me giggle.
Slicer Thunderclap. And even though he was intelligent and very bright, some believe that Alex had a problem differentiating his real life from his role-playing character. He was also very introverted. He was depressed to the point of considering suicide, actually. And he hated everybody. Everybody, that is, except for David Anderson, who Alex said he, quote, loved like a brother. David Anderson was one of 4 boys, charming and handsome, known as a bit of a bully, and he had a way of manipulating people. And by most accounts, he rebelled hard against the discipline of his father. The 2 boys, both high school dropouts, empowered each other. Alex would do anything for David because, quote, he was the first person I actually liked. Alex and David eventually got around to sharing with the other group of high school kids at Denny's how they wanted to commit murder. So the group shrugged it off, thinking Alex and David were just trying to get a rise out of them. And although a few would reveal later that they could remember Alex and David talking about committing murder as far back as 1995, like 2 years prior. Eventually, Alice and David even got to sharing what they called their kill list to the group, which, of course, is just like it sounds. It's a list of people that they wanted to kill. Even though the 2 boys made some of their friends uncomfortable with their intensity and talk of committing murder, nobody in that group thought that the boys were serious.
I don't think anybody thinks that they're serious. You know what I mean? How many times do the kids say, I'm going to kill you? A lot. I know.
Right. But unfortunately, Alex and David were serious. They even discussed that they needed to commit the crime before they turned 18 because David erroneously believed that if they committed the crime as a minor, they'd automatically be freed once they turned 21.
So they're already okay with the idea of doing any prison time for killing somebody.
Right. We're going to kill him. If we get caught, we'll just get out by the time we're 21.
Ooh.
I know. On that kill list was Kimberly Ann Wilson. She had gone to school with the boys, and in fact, she had known David since grade school. Kimberly, born on September of 1976, was a few years older than Alex and David. While Kim wasn't technically part of the goth scene in Belleville High, she did associate with them. And that was primarily because Kim had friends from all the various groups, and she did have a crush on David. The two had even dated sporadically, as photos of him found in her bedroom would later display. And there's at least one source that says that her sister Julia was the one that dated David. So sources are different. You know how it is. One newspaper says one thing. And
so dated one of them, at least, is what we know.
Either Kim or Julia, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Kim's friend Claire described Kim as a girl who was happy just doing her own thing. She was generous and fun, and when she was younger, she was in Girl Scouts, swimming, and she was very active in her church. As she got older, it was evident that she was the rebel of her family. She almost didn't graduate because she skipped so much school her senior year. Oh. I can relate to that, except I skipped all through high school. You didn't hear that? Anybody that's listening, I was a perfect child.
Go to school, get your education, show up every day.
But her generosity was one of her standout features. Kim was always willing to help people if she could. She would let people stay in her home. She would loan them money, however she could help. And this spilled over into her professional life as well. After Kim graduated in high school in 1995, she took the year off. Then, much to her parents' dismay, she signed up for AmeriCorps instead of going to college. AmeriCorps is a national service program with most volunteers working full-time for about a year. In return, they receive housing, a living allowance, and college tuition assistance. It's federally funded and a perfect opportunity for those who want to make a difference in their community. However, this wasn't the route that the Wilsons wanted their daughter to take. William Wilson, 52, was an accountant at Graham Steel. He was known for his quiet sense of humor. His wife, Rosalie, 46, worked at the University of Washington libraries. A more traditional education was what they wanted for Kim and her 17-year-old sister, Julie. This disagreement over what Kim would do with her life sometimes got fairly heated, by the way. On December 28, 1996, concerned residents called the police when one of those arguments caused a loud disturbance in the neighborhood. But Kim's mind was made up, so she moved down the coast to San Diego, California, and she started to train with AmeriCorps. So you may be wondering what this seemingly innocuous girl from this run-of-the-mill family in a quiet, respectable community had done to get herself put on Alex and David's kill list, right?
I am, actually.
Yeah. Seems that she had loaned David a couple $100, and she made him sign a promissory note. And now she wanted to get that money back.
Which is reasonable.
Mm-hmm. She asked him several times to repay her. And each time she did, he got more and more annoyed.
Okay, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Her trip, just one more reason not to loan anybody money.
You can't loan people money. You can't loan people money. You have to be okay with giving it to them and knowing you'll never see it again. If you're okay with that, then you go ahead and do it.
Yep. Kim's trip to Bellevue from San Diego for Christmas 1996 seemed like the perfect moment to tie up loose ends. And in fact, she had run into David at the Factoria Mall the day before she was supposed to return to San Diego. And once again, she inquired about the money he owed her. Now that the Christmas and New Year's celebrations were over, Kim was looking forward to coming back to San Diego. On January 3rd, 1997, the evening before she was to leave, Kim went to Woodridge Water Tower Park, just a few blocks from her home, on 121 Street, Southeast Avenue. And there she met David and Alex. The evening was cold and damp, and as Kim chatted back and forth with them, one of them put a rope around her neck and strangled her until she was dead. And David and Alex just scratched off the name of their kill list. The next morning of January 4th, 2 8-year-old boys were playing in the park when they came across what they thought was a pile of clothing. When they finally realized that it was a dead body, they ran to tell their parents, who immediately called the police. Those kids, honestly, they'll
Traumatic
never be the same.
For them. Could you
8
imagine?
years old?
Like, they don't even know what that is yet.
Arriving on the scene was Detective Jeff Gomes of the Bellevue Police Department. Suspicions of possible suicide soon gave way as it became evident that Kim Wilson had also been brutally beaten. While in the process of confirming the fact that the deceased was Kim Wilson, they also learned that her family lived just a few blocks away. Detective Gomes didn't like giving death notices to family, but unfortunately he'd done it plenty of times in his long career, which was arguably the worst part of his job. So with a heavy heart and a mind full of questions, he made his way across the neighborhood. To 121 Street, Southwest Avenue. When he arrived, it looked like everybody was at home since numerous cars were parked in the driveway and the Christmas lights were twinkling. It's kind of a good thing, he thought, if everybody was home. That meant he could get plenty of... The family would be there to support each other, when they learned of the news of their daughter's death, right?
No, it's not what I was thinking. Ugh.
However, upon closer inspection of the house, all the interior lights were off. He knocked on the door, and there was no answer. Now, something didn't sit right with Detective Gomes, so he headed around the back of the house to see if he could find an unlocked door. He tried sliding the glass door, and what do you know? It was unlocked. And not only was it unlocked, but he noticed that it had already slightly ajar. Well, now he's worried, right? Thinking that the family may have experienced a robbery, he removed his firearm from his holster and cautiously stepped inside the house. But any thoughts of robbery soon subsided as the bodies of Kim's entire family lay in heaps throughout the house. Mm-hmm.
No way.
Rosalie Wilson, Kim's mother, was found in her bed. She had been stabbed multiple times in the neck and had been bashed into the head with a heavy object. Kim's father, William Angus Wilson, was dead on the floor with similar injuries, but he had a bloody boot print left on the back of his shirt. And Kim's younger sister, Julie, the shy, good-natured girl who played the flute and wrote poetry, she was found bludgeoned and stabbed and even had a broken arm because she had tried to fight back. All sorts of things were running through the investigators' heads. Was it a murder-suicide? Did Kim kill her whole family and then go hang herself in the park, which is ridiculous because she was found on the ground? Could one of the parents have attacked her, causing her to lose control and fight back? Or did a serial killer target the Wilsons' home and somehow Kim got away? And then she died in the park? They didn't know. They had to start investigating. So investigators began questioning Kim's friends. And two suspects kept coming up, as the Saturday night Denny's Club recalled that Kim's name was on David Anderson's kill list. But is Kim's whole family on the kill list? That seemed kind of preposterous.
I was just thinking, when you find a kill list from kids, people poo-poo it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Immediately following the discovery of the Wilson family, the community at large began to get worried. On January 6, 1997, more than 100 neighbors met with the police at a Woodridge home, where police tried to calm their fears that a random killer was at large. A few nights later, hundreds gathered for a second community meeting at Woodridge Elementary School. But while the larger community was concerned, many of the residents in the immediate vicinity weren't. They felt from the beginning that the family had been targeted. However, the most distressing to the neighbors was that nobody heard or saw anything at all. Investigators interviewed both Alex and David at their residences. Both claimed that they had played video games at Alex's home the night of the murders. And police say that Alex had been very cooperative and forthcoming. He even showed him his knife collection. However, neighbors would soon inform the police that David and Alex had not spent the whole evening at Alex's house. They had been seen leaving before midnight, and at 3:30 a.m., they still hadn't returned home. When the police brought Alex for questioning, and as soon as he realized that his alibi was no longer held, he confessed to the murders. It was that simple.
That fast?
He said, that fast.
Good.
He said that he didn't even see a point in carrying on with a lie if they already knew the truth. In a taped confession that lasted hours, he told investigators exactly how he killed the family with a baseball bat and a knife. And he left out one important fact. He claimed that he acted alone. Alex said that he committed the brutal acts because he was, quote, in a slump. And he wanted to experience something, quote, truly phenomenal.
In a slump?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That's like jaw-dropping right there, isn't it?
A slump is in baseball when you're not hitting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A slump is when you're dating and you're kind of striking out a lot.
Yep.
Another baseball analogy for you, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. There's other things you can do than to kill an entire family.
Thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. After killing Kim, Alex worried that her family might have known who she was with, and that's when he realized that he had to kill them all too. He didn't want a witness. There had to be no witnesses. And he said that as he was upstairs killing Kim's parents, Rosalie and William, the hallway light clicked on, and there was Julie, Kim's sister. She had been up studying for a chemistry test. She cautiously came down the hall to see what was happening. Alex then went on to the offensive, attacking her. He fought her, and she cried. And she said that he told Julie, quote, "I'm sorry." And then Alex told the police, quote, "I was sorry for killing her." As if this is a true statement, right? Alex understood that what he was doing was wrong, and he felt some remorse. Some of it, I mean, at least where Julie is concerned, he felt remorse. In a later interview, that he would say that what he did was, quote, "inconceivable to a normal person." You got that right, buddy.
Yeah, no kidding.
But investigators, they knew Alex hadn't acted alone. A blood spatter expert detailed how more than one type of weapon was used in the killing based on the different spatter remains. Now, let's just take a step back. Remember that blood spatter analysis has been called pseudoscience. And
really? I wouldn't say so.
Well,
but yeah,
in 2009, the National Research Council condemned blood pattern analysis as, quote, more subjective than scientific. Mm-hmm. And in 2021, the largest to-date study on the accuracy of it was published. The accuracy of PBA was published with results, quote, showing that the BPA conclusions were often erroneous and often contradicted other analysis.
Dexter would disagree. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm just saying that
I got you.
It's just a pseudoscience. Basically, it's a guessing game. They can make educated guesses, but it's not fact.
Yeah.
This guy said, when multiple types of weapons are used in murder, it usually indicates that there are more than one perpetrator. However, that's not entirely conclusive. And so Ross Gardner, the blood spatter expert, he was also able to show that by an absence of spatter and droplets in a particular area, that there had to be another person standing in the way. And there was also 2 sets of bloody footprints left at the scene of the crime. So I believe the lack of blood spatter, like if you see blood spatter at a certain place and then there's not, and then a little bit later there is more, there is an object that's was in the way, right?
Yes.
I believe that's probably
common sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally, Alex admitted that he had an accomplice, but he never implicated his best friend, David Anderson. And in fact, David Anderson never confessed.
What do these people think? Like when you say I have an accomplice, do they think that the police are going to go, "Oh, okay, yeah, we thought so," and they're just going to let it go?
Check it off the list. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what we thought. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, thanks. And no.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
but the police had property and evidence linked to both boys at the scene of the crime. A bloody shoelace and boots with blood and brain matter that matched the Wilson family were found in their homes. Stolen property, a wallet, a CD player, and a VCR were found at Alex's home. Alex Barani Jr. claimed to have no real motive for the killing and that he, quote, suddenly realized that he couldn't leave any witnesses, thus making the decision to murder the rest of the family on the spot. And we know this isn't true because witness testimonies stated that they heard David and Alex planning to kill the family. And it is now widely believed that the murders had been planned for well over a year. Even though Alex didn't really care who he was killing, he just wanted to kill someone. And it was David who had picked the targets and planned the whole thing. And it was basically David who was the puppet master.
Again, how many times do we have to say, doesn't somebody along the journey say, I just don't think that's a good idea. I just don't think so.
A truly cold and heartless example of David Anderson's manipulation tactics was what he calmly told the detective who questioned him, quote, "It's a shame. Woodridge used to be the kind of place where people didn't have to lock their doors." Fully knowing that he was the reason residents would have to lock the doors from here on out. Both David and Alex were charged with 4 counts of aggravated first-degree murder, and they each had separate trials. But both were convicted, and each were given 4 life sentences.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Even though Alex was diagnosed with bipolar disorder just before his trial, the jury realized that being bipolar doesn't equal a murderous killing spree. Alex's trial went fairly smoothly, with the jury only needing 3 hours to convict him. More than 600 exhibits of evidence and nearly 50 witnesses were presented in Alex and Anderson's trials cumulatively. The documentation became so cumbersome that they had to wheel the records into court each day on a cart by the time the trial began. At the end of the trial, Alex was quoted as saying, quote, "If I was the jury, I would have found me guilty too. It's a very gruesome thing, and it's not something I want to remember. I look back and I think I couldn't have done that. It seems like I was a different person." When asked if he had anything to say to the court or to the Wilsons' loved ones, he said no. And that those left to mourn the Wilsons were going to, quote, "hate him until the day he died." And no amount of words would change that.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. Alex had written in one of his fantasy journals, quote, "Death and killing neither worries nor scares me. With our hands we hold the flame of life. I have done the unspeakable. I have become a god." Yeah.
Really?
Well, remember Slice Thunderclap. He was an immortal god, so
I guess. I thought he was playing.
That was his D&D people.
Yeah.
His D&D
he gets
character.
to decide if somebody lives or dies.
Well,
but then also he loves that fact, or else he wouldn't have said that.
He had done the unspeakable. I have become a god. Exactly. Deciding who lives, who dies. The case of David Anderson, that one didn't go as smoothly. A mistrial was declared after jurors deadlocked 11-1 for conviction on 3 of the murder counts, and were headed toward a 10-2 split on the 4th count, the death of Kim Wilson. Prosecutors say one holdout juror sabotaged their case by refusing to convict Anderson of anything. Quote, "It was tremendously stressful to make sense of all the information that was presented to prove their guilt," Detective Gomes said. "It had a tremendous emotional effect on me for 3 years. It was the worst murder in Bellevue's history." David Anderson's second trial ended with his conviction. The King County Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Ramsdale stared down from the bench at Anderson before speaking. Quote, "A jury unilaterally convicted you for 4 brutal and senseless murders. I will resist the temptation to unnecessarily belabor this and say anything more." And with that, the judge handed down the sentence of 4 consecutive life sentences.
Good.
While the Wilsons' family had representation in the courtroom during the trials, they didn't speak or make a statement. The Anderson family didn't speak either, but their defense attorneys made it known that they do not believe that their son is guilty. They believed somebody had planted the evidence in his house, even though numerous witnesses testified that he had talked about killing that specific family for over a year.
I get that there's hope, but sometimes come on. You have hope that your child would never do this, but sometimes they do, and you have to accept that.
He might not have killed anybody, but he could have been the catalyst that did. had them killed. He might have been there. I believe he was there at least.
Mm-hmm.
He might not have actually killed anybody, but it was on their kill list. I'm just saying.
I know.
He may not have, but he was there. They were on his kill list, and there you go.
Yeah.
He's still responsible, I believe. Well, and another thing, Alex, he had no other friends. And David was the only person he would have killed for. And the relationship between Alex and David is frightfully similar to the relationship between Columbine shooters Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yep. 2 years after the Wilson family murders in Bellevue, the world was shocked by the shootings at Columbine High School in Colorado. Much like Alex Barani Jr., Dylan Klebold had been in a deep depression for months and considered suicide. Eric Harris had planned and instigated the murders as David Anderson had in Bellevue. Both sets of friends had an unbreakable bond and deep loyalty to each other. In both instances, Bellevue and Columbine, warning signs were ignored and mental health care overlooked. According to the 2017 edition of a book written by Bartol and Bartol on criminal behavior, which the book is called Criminal Behavior, by the way, the perpetrator of a school shooting, quote, often has faced peer or social rejection, endured bullying, has anger about the bullying, or lacks the social or coping skills to deal with these issues. They often have an interest in guns and weapons with easy access to firearms, and have often repeatedly made clear their violent intentions to others, usually peers. Attacks seem planned in advance. Synthesizing to many factors, it's argued that most school shooters have a history of social rejection along with other psychological problems and an interest in weapons and or fascination with death. School shooters often know little attachment to their school. Now, while Alex and David were not necessarily school shooters, an argument could be made that their psychological profile is pretty darn close. Alex suffered social rejection and had only his fantasies to use as coping mechanisms. And both David and Alex were obsessed with weapons, and the boys made their violent intentions to their peers clear as day. They planned it all in advance, and they had a fascination with death. They both suffered psychological problems and clearly had no attachment to their school because, of course, they were high school dropouts. And just 10 months before the brutal slaughter of the entire Wilson family, Alex Barani followed Dawn Kenchi and Annalisa Stone back to their house uninvited. And for Alex, an unwelcome visit seemed like the perfect follow-up to Annalisa's rebuffing his romantic advances. And what started out as innocent horseplay soon turned violent. Dawn filed a police report claiming that Alex had given her concussion, bruises on her neck, and a bruised abdomen from where he kicked her. And he'd also verbally threatened to kill her twice. The police talked with Alex and dropped the whole matter. They filed it under, calling it mutual combat.
What?
Yeah. And I mean, we're never going to know the truth of what happened because, the authorities completely dismissed it. But this was the opportunity they had to get Alex a mental health evaluation, maybe some counseling, treatment, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was ignored. It was just even though it was mutual combat, even though she went to the police to say, yeah, it was mutual, whatever. I wonder if it would be taken differently now.
Well, and I think too, I don't know, I'm not even going to say it. Never mind. I was just going to say that, it's a man, or a boy against a girl or a man against a woman. It's,
women aren't taken seriously. Is that what you're trying to say?
Men are stronger. They're just stronger. So if you put them in a pit, make them fight, usually the man's always going to come out on top because he's stronger physically. Not always, but
I know.
Usually.
Well, it seems clear that Alex and Anderson's obsession with death, murder, and the creation of their kill list was a serious cry for help, whether they realized it or not, right? So now we're left with the most controversial part of this case. In October of 2018, the Washington State Supreme Court handed down the decision that life sentences without parole for minors are unconstitutional. And according to the U.S. Supreme Court, this decision was based on the fact that, quote, Children are constitutionally different from adults in their levels of culpability when it comes to sentencing. Differences in maturity and accountability inform the protections of the Eighth Amendment's prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. Since 2005, Supreme Court rulings have accepted adolescent brain science and banned the use of capital punishment for juveniles, limited life without parole sentences to homicide offenses only, banned the use of mandatory life without parole, and applied the decision retroactively. Basically, that they feel those convicted as juveniles deserve a chance to have a meaningful life outside of prison. So the U.S. Supreme Court mandated that David Anderson be resentenced in a quadruple murder case. He was resentenced to 33 years, and that's little over 8 years for each savage and brutal killing. And at which time, after 33 years, he will be eligible for parole. Now, Alex hasn't been resentenced, and although his case is expected to follow similar sentencing requirements mandated by the U.S. Supreme Court, it will most likely result in the similar outcome. Now, David and Alex just didn't commit murder. They wiped out an entire family off the map for basically a few $100s. Alex and David planned to do that for at least a year, and they deliberately committed the murders before they turned 18 to avoid serious punishment. So maybe the parole board will take that into consideration when the time for being paroled happens. But yeah, that's it. Now, I totally agree with the Supreme Court's ruling.
As do I.
There are some cases where kids aren't culpable, but when you're that close to 18 and it's planned out,
your crime,
well, yeah,
I agree. Wow, my sister lives right by there.
Yeah, I do know that.
Wow,
and it's one thing because Loretta, who wrote this and did a lot of the research and all that kind of stuff, she said, I couldn't find a lot about the family, the Wilsons, and you know what? I couldn't either. Like, there's hardly a photograph of them. There's hardly anything about them that tells you what there is. Just like things from friends. Like the family that was there for them in court, they never spoke. They never...
Unless they have a Facebook or something like that, there wouldn't be a lot. If something this tragic happened.
Couldn't find anything. When that was 1997, that wouldn't... There's no Facebook for the masses.
That would make sense. You know what I mean? Like there wouldn't be a lot out there.
It's just sad because now very few people know about the Wilson family, who they were, what their dreams, what their hopes and plans. I mean, it's just...
Yeah. Hopefully their loved ones carry on their legacy,
Right. Mm-hmm.
I just don't... that fascinates me with child murderers just because I don't understand. I don't get it. And when I don't understand something, I struggle with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with Alex and if he's going to get the same resentenced, like get 33 years for murder like David did. It could be different since he did say he killed them. He did admit to it, but never did he say that it was David.
Yeah, but usually... it doesn't matter. If you're in the car during the commencement of a robbery and somebody dies, you're just as culpable as the person who did it. So, like what we always say, at any time during this, doesn't somebody just say, you know what? I don't think this is a good idea.
Well, but
yet they don't.
David picked the kill list. Alex did the killing, is what it sounds like. So they are both culpable of it.
Well, Charles Manson had those people kill people, and he never killed anybody. So... You know what I mean? But it wouldn't happen if it weren't for him. So there you go. Well, that was a good one, Jen and Loretta. Thank you.
Yes.
Wow. I don't know if we've ever even done one from Washington, have we? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Sure we
to be
have,
quite
maybe.
honest.
I don't know
Maybe
either.
not from Bellevue.
No, I don't think so. That was a good job. Speaking of good, have you been watching anything good lately?
I started The Patient. It's the new, is it Hulu? I believe it's Hulu.
I think it is Hulu.
It's with Steve Carell, and he plays a...
Oh, yeah, I started that too. I haven't finished
psychiatrist.
Yeah,
yep.
I just forgot that. Yep. We're not going to say what happens because,
But yeah, it's good so far. I think there's only 4 episodes into it. But I do like it. I've always liked Steve Carell, though. I think he's fun.
I have a crush on him. I think he's adorable.
Oh, yeah, he is adorable.
One of the few, well, not one of the few, but he's one of those kind of people that I think that they get more handsome as they get older.
Oh, yeah.
Always, I mean, it's the case with you and I. It's the case with you and I, but with others, sometimes it's not the case, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. In general, men seem to get more attractive as they age. In general. It's more often than not, in my opinion.
Well, maybe that's because we're not men. I don't know. Meaning like we like them. I did watch yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Trying not to laugh. The Real Bling Ring Hollywood Heist. It was on Netflix.
Nice.
Right. So remember the Bling Ring, which they broke into, let's see, Lindsay Lohan, Rachel Bilson, Orlando Bloom, Audrina Patridge, I think that's how you say her name. And like stole them blind, stole their jewelry, stole their clothes, stole purses, shoes, Rolex watches, all this stuff. So they made a movie of it with Emma Watson, and this is the real story. And all I can say is, because I like this, I like stuff like that, but I talk about a bunch of kids that are totally entitled and just, I don't know. I need people to watch it and let me know what you think, because of course I was enthralled with it, because I still to this day, I don't think that do you realize what you did? You broke into somebody, like you went into their house, you got into their private stuff, and then they sold it, but then they'd wear it. Like there's a picture of the guy that was involved in it, and Orlando Bloom, he's wearing his sunglasses and a hat, and he'd purposely call the paparazzi to come out and take pictures of him as he's like at the mall, and it's in Orlando Bloom stuff. And I was like, really? And virtually they got no time. I mean, they really didn't. So I don't know. Check it out. It's good for cheesy TV, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I get that. Well, cheesy TV, I've been watching. It's on hold on. I can't do true crime 24/7. I just can't. I need, and like even a little bit of crime, like the Bling Ring even gets to me. What I have been watching, it's on the Peacock, and I've been watching it on Peacock, the app, is Resident Alien, and it's with Alec, is it Tyduck?
Oh, no.
Why can't I pronounce his name? Tudyk. He was in Serenity. He's like Strawberry Blonde, maybe more blonde. He's great. I love him. He plays like this alien that comes down, and there's a light murder. It's very funny. He's a
it's funny
actor.
Oh,
yeah, it's funny. It's goofy funny.
Good to know.
I think you would like it. It's fun. And Nathan Fillion plays the voice of an octopus. And you'll have to watch it just to
understand that. Okay. Well, I get you. I know what you're saying.
The octopus is also alien. He came down from...
Well, obvious.
Some people actually believe that octopus may be part alien, but that's a totally different conspiracy
theory. A different episode, Jen.
But anyway, if you want something light and goofy and kind of fun with good characters, I would suggest Resident Alien.
Good.
It's been fun. But other than that, I haven't really watched anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I mean, there's the new Dahmer thing out that everybody's talking about, and some people don't want to watch it because of the whole traumatizing victims. I actually did try to watch it. I couldn't get past the first half of the episode because it was just too much for me. That's, like I said, I can't do true crime all the time. It gets to your psyche,
Believe it or not, yes, it does does rake you over the coals once in a while.
Yes.
I get that.
But from the people that I have heard that have watched it, have really liked it. They thought it was really well done. They think it's pretty gory, but if, I say go for it. Try it out. See if you like it. Let us know.
Did you watch the Lori Vallow?
I did not.
Netflix? Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, honestly, it's sad. It's so sad. Obviously, she's mentally ill. And so that just puts another element in there. So, yeah, it's pretty terrible. But yeah.
I know. All
right, Jen, well, I guess that's really all I got to say.
That's all I have to say, too. Yeah. I don't got much else.
Okay,
it's just very busy here. The next couple of weekends, you and I are going to be busy. We're going to go down and see our friend Brandon from Southern Gothic. He's going to be doing a live show.
Yes, that's middle of October.
Yep. And I think at the end of October, I'm not for sure if it's definite, but I think you and I are going to go to the Basilica X murder home, right?
We are. With who?
Kelly from...
I was like, hello, you there?
Yep. Nope. With our friend Kelly from True Crime...
In Real Life, right?
In Real Life, right. Yeah, I couldn't think of it.
TCIRL. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So hopefully that will come to fruition and we'll get to go. And we're going to record it for everybody. So
it'd be awesome.
It'll be fun.
Except hopefully. I'm a chicken. You know I'm a chicken. I'll probably be sleeping in the car. And then I'll get freaked out at that and be like, I can't say it. I got to go. So anyway, yeah. But anyway, that's all we have. So until next Wednesday, remember, lock your doors.
And keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love ya. Today's episode was researched and written by me, Jen. For more information about this episode, as well as all other sources, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by the hosts, Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertese from We Talk of Dreams. You can reach Nico at wetalkofdreams.com. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from OctoberPod VHS. You can find all of his great works on YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter with the handle at Our True Crime Pod. You can also email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. We would also at this time like to thank our patrons. We would be so lost without you. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help support the show, you can check us out on patreon.com/Our True Crime Podcast. You can also show your support by leaving a 5-star review on Apple or simply just tell your friends about us. It's that easy. Love ya.